Why physical education is important. Students through physical education class have opportunities to be active, can improve physical fitness, can develop their motor skills, develop discipline, can develop positive relationships, learn new things and connect knowledge with other subjects such as diet and nutrition and dealing with health issues. Physical education is important for students' healthy growth and development. It's important for students' mental health, such as exercise relieves stress and anxiety. Meet with a variety of physical activities and adopt physical activity as a lifetime habit. One more thing, physical education is fun. Fun is a major determinant of physical activity as long as we promote pupils' intrinsic motivation. What is physical activity? Physical activity is defined as any bodily movement produced by skeletal muscles that results in energy expenditure. Why do we need physical activity? It improves cognition on the day it is performed, improves mood and boosts energy, strengthens your bones and muscles, promotes better sleep, improves your ability with daily activities, helps maintain your weight in a healthy range, reduces the risk of a variety of health conditions and diseases, such as risk of cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes, a number of cancers, and blood pressure. It increases chances of living longer and better. According to the last World Health Organization recommendations, children and youth aged 5 to 17 should accumulate at least 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous intensity physical activity daily. Amounts of physical activity greater than 60 minutes provide additional health benefits. Most of the daily physical activity should be aerobic. Vigorous intensity activities should be incorporated, including those that strengthen muscle and bones. For this age group, bone loading activities can be performed as part of playing games, running, turning, or jumping at least 3 times per week. Examples of physical activity with moderate intensity are walking briskly, such as 3 miles per hour or faster, but not race walking, water aerobics, bicycling slower than 10 miles per hour in level terrain, tennis, ballroom dancing, and general gardening. Examples of physical activities with vigorous intensity are race walking, jogging, or running, playing football, basketball, and team sports in general, swimming laps, tennis, aerobic dancing, bicycling 10 miles per hour or faster, jumping rope, heavy gardening, and hiking uphill or with a heavy backpack. Rates of physical activity among children and adolescents are physical inactivity is now identified as the 4th leading risk factor for global mortality. Physical inactivity levels are rising in many countries, with major implications for the prevalence of non-communicable diseases and the general health of the population worldwide. Levels of physical activity among youth remain low, decline dramatically during adolescence, opportunities for regular physical activity are limited, and 81% of adolescents aged 11 to 17 years were insufficiently physically active in 2010. As shown in this graph, across all European countries, less than 30% of European boys meet World Health Organization's recommendations for daily physical activity. Even worse, less than 15% of European girls are doing daily physical activity. Impact preliminary findings from a sample of 2,079 students aged 12 to 16 from 6 countries showed that less than 3 days per week resulted in 31% of boys and 46% of girls participated in 60 minutes of physical activity. 38% of boys and 35% of girls reported participation in physical activity 3 to 4.5 days per week. 31% of boys and 19% of girls participated in physical activity 5 to 7 days per week. Almost 1 every 2 girls and 1 every 3 boys are characterized as inactive. Just 1 in every 5 girls and 1 in every 3 boys can be characterized as active. How physical education can contribute to increase students' participation in physical activity. It enables children and youth to become physically literate through the development of attitudes, behaviors, and skills.
The importance of physical literacy. Physical literacy is the foundation of physical education. It is not a program, but an outcome of any structured physical education provision, which is achieved more readily if learners encounter a range of age and stage-appropriate opportunities.
What does a physically literate person look like? Maintain motivation and confidence in adopting physical activity as an integral part of life. Appreciate the intrinsic value of physical activity, as well as its contribution to health and well-being. Related to others, demonstrate sensitivity in their verbal and nonverbal communication and develop empathetic relationships. What does a physically literate person look like? Demonstrates physical competence that enables an individual to participate in a wide range of physical activities and settings. Knows and understands how to be physically active in a variety of physical environments, and engages in physical activities for life.
Becoming physically literate is not an automatic process. An action plan is needed to be planned and implemented. Physical education teachers need to be appropriately educated.
The challenges of physical education in contributing to students' physical activity. The physical education lesson in most countries is limited to 2 to 3 hours per week. Thus, the physical education lesson cannot help students to meet the World Health Organization's recommendations. The potential of physical education in promoting students' physical activity. The limited time allocated to physical education in school makes more important than the promotion of physical activity out of school. Physical education teachers can plan and deliver a lesson that may urge students to participate in physical activity out of school.
Motivation in school physical education is connected with participation out of school sport and exercise. Unfortunately, participation in out of school sport and exercise has much bigger impact on motivation in school physical education than the vice versa. In the Impact Project, we want to make a small change on this. By increasing the impact of motivation in school physical education on participation in out-of-school sport and exercise. How to increase the impact of motivation in physical education on pupils' participation in out-of-school physical activity. A motivational process. Here you can see a motivational process that received a lot of research support across different countries. The physical education teacher can create an environment in physical education class that supports students' needs to feel competent, autonomous, and with good social relationships with teachers and peers. It is important that all students feel a sense of support from both teachers and peers. This environment has an impact on students' self-determined goals and reasons to be physically active on their intrinsic motivation and on their goals to improve themselves. All these make students happy, not only in physical education, but in their life too. A motivational process. A second path to affect physical activity is to motivate students to be physically active out of school. The positive motivational climate is physical education helps to motivate students to become interested in physical activity both inside of school and out of school. This will help teachers to persuade students to monitor themselves how physically active they are out of school, and then to set goals to increase their out-of-school physical activity. We know that in every European country, we have many different challenges to promote out-of-school physical activity. For example, in some European countries, the school curricula put more emphasis on the promotion of out-of-school physical activity of all pupils than in other countries. The built environment and the organization of out-of-school sport is also different across countries. For example, in some European countries, there are more parks and sport facilities close to pupils' residence, or more sport and exercise programs offered for free to all pupils than in other countries. Families are also important. Families with better resources in terms of money and time, or with higher parent education can provide more support to their students. All these out-of-school determinants of pupils' physical activity have a big influence both on pupils' participation in after-school sport and exercise and on their intrinsic motivation and enjoyment when they practice sport. What we will try to do through the Impact Project is to make a small but very specific impact on those factors that we can do. First, on our teaching and the motivational climate that we create in physical education, trying to emphasize the value of personal project and to satisfy students' need and self-determination. We know that through this teaching process, we can somehow increase pupils' intrinsic motivation and enjoyment in physical education, and eventually their happiness and active participation in physical education. Nevertheless, this is not enough to make considerable impact if we miss to prepare students for out-of-school physical activity, if we don't direct all students to do out-of-school sport and exercise. Hence, the second impact will be on the preparation of pupils for out-of-school physical activity. How can we do it? By trying to help them create a little bit more positive attitude toward participation in out-of-school sport and exercise, to monitor themselves how active they are in out-of-school physical activities, and then to set goals for out-of-school sport and exercise and to feel confident that they can achieve these goals.
School is the ideal setting for promoting students' health. So, what can teachers do in order to promote out-of-school physical activity? What can we do? Physical education teachers can help students learn how to exercise properly, experiences a variety of physical activities, learn basic principles of exercise and adjust under different conditions, learn how to collaborate with others in order to play games and enjoy physical activity. What can we do? Physical education teachers can help students learn how to evaluate their level of fitness, measure their progress, and set goals for themselves and become self-regulated in physical activity. The impact methodology, strategies that may have an impact on students' physical activity. The impact methodology. First, we will monitor students' physical activity levels. Then, physical education teachers will receive reports about students who mostly need physical activity. And finally, physical education teachers will apply specific strategies to promote students' out-of-school physical activity. Strategies that may have an impact on students' physical activity: self-monitoring, goal setting, and action planning. Self-monitoring is an essential part of self-regulation. Why is it important to monitor ourselves? It helps us understand what we are doing, how much and how often, is the basis of measuring our progress, and is useful technique when we are trying to create new habits or break bad habits. How can we use data from self-monitoring? It helps us to evaluate our current levels of physical activity, set physical activity goals to achieve within the next period, make plans how to achieve our physical activity goals, such as where and when to exercise, and eventually to improve our levels of physical activity. When self-monitoring our physical activity levels, it is important to give emphasis on personal improvement.